before it gets too late.
I'll tell you what, it's not just a question of whether we are a sovereign nation or a police state. Is the World Economic Forum going to turn the entire globe into a police state? And that's how we begin the latest episode of Stand and Deliver. Welcome, friends. Bob Frantz, National Communications Director for Citizens for Free Speech, joined by...
And Patrick Wood, the original founder, actually, in 2018, and still the director of Citizens for Free Speech. We're glad you're here. Tell a friend to tune in to Stand and Deliver. We'll learn all kinds of good things about free speech, what's going on in the nation and in the world. And today we're just going to kind of kick off the whole scene here with what's happening at the World Economic Forum, because they are meeting this very week in person. Well, they all got there with their private jets and stuff, of course. And they flew in from all over the world, and there they are. They're telling each other how bad everything is. Oh, we're just losing the battle, and, we can't control the world, and people won't listen to us. And Bob, what just completely struck me, they are obsessing over misinformation and disinformation, and they're having panels, they're having discussions, they're having action groups on how they can clamp down on disinformation that is contrary to their narrative. And Bob, they've called people in from around the world, important people like Brian Seltzer for one, and then you've got the publisher of New York Times, you've got all these other mucky mucks in the media world. They're all obsessing over misinformation. One called it the existential threat to the world. Can you imagine? Forget nuclear war, forget pandemics, forget whatever. But this is the existential threat, the clear and present danger, they called it, the top concern. It's like, Bob, are we over the target or what?
Well, Pat, you may be surprised to hear me say this, but they're right. Misinformation, as they call it, is the people having a say and having a response to some of the things that the globalists who are attempting to essentially, create a one world government, to erase the sovereign nation of the United States and all the others, to their mission. Misinformation, as they call it, is the greatest threat to the world, because in their minds, they have to use all of the fear-mongering that they can muster to try to scare the bejeebers out of everybody, particularly in the industrialized worlds in the Western world. They have to scare everybody into compliance with, their orders. And of course, we know that climate change is number one on their agenda. It's been and it is funny that you point out, they all took their private jets to Davos, emitting, Lord only knows how much carbon into the atmosphere, but that's okay, because they're there to talk about how to reduce carbon emissions, which is kind of hilarious. But they're there to advance the scientism of climate change in order to scare people into compliance, to scare world leaders and nations into signing on to their globalist demands in the interest of trying to stop the planet from melting. That's the only way they exhibit their control. So why is misinformation the number one threat to them? It's because, and the word you used, by the way, was most existential problem facing the planet. That came from the publisher of the New York Times, A.G. Sulzberger. He described disinformation as the most existential threat because, Pat, there once was a time pre-internet and pre-social media when the New York Times got the first word and the last word on all of these issues. What they wrote, people had to believe, because there was no forum for anybody to compete with that narrative. Well, now there is. Now people can go out there and cite numerous For example, on the climate change issue, numerous scientific studies from around the world, from some of the same places that they say provides evidence of global warming, of mankind's destruction of the planet, which is leading to this and that and the other, and we better pull together before it's all too late in this massive globalist agenda. Now there are other people who can say, wait a minute, that's not what this study found. That's not what this measurement found. That's not what this found. Carbon emissions based, and we'll go back, hundreds and then thousands and then tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of years, looking at global temperatures. And it's like, well, now they don't know what to do. They at Davos, including the publisher of the New York Times, they don't have the first and last word anymore. Other people get a say. So they have to then discredit the other people, discredit the other sources, discredit the other science, discredit people like you, discredit people like me, discredit like 100,000 CFFS members, discredit what we have to say and call it misinformation or disinformation, and that it's going to kill us all. So in a strange way, they're right. Misinformation, which is technically the rest of us sharing the other side of the story, is the most existential threat that they face because of their agenda.
To them, that's right. To them, they're the ones that are on the chopping block right now, not us. And they're scared to death. They're scared to death.